Someone who knew in advance made billions of dollars on the October 7th terrorist attack in Israel. Someone who knew in advance that the attack was coming manipulated the Israeli stock market to make an incredible stock purchase pay off to the tune of billions of dollars. Now, the $1,000,000 question, maybe we should say $1,000,000,000 question, is who? Who did this? Yes, I want to know, because whoever did this had to have advanced knowledge that the attack was coming. So who was it? Was it the leaders of Hamas themselves? They would have a motive. Was it Iran? Was it the USA's deep state? People like the CIA. Was it a globalist billionaire? Was it Israel themselves? The list goes on, but whoever it was is a really, really bad actor. Someone who deserves punishment, severe punishment, and of course, long term, this is coming. Riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. Proverbs 11:4. But if we figure out who did this, it may reveal someone behind the attack that we haven't seen before. That is big news if we figure it out. So let's get going. But before we begin to delve into who it was, let's start looking at how they did it, because I'm sure you want to know. You see, this profiteering was done through the stock market itself, through insider knowledge. And shockingly, sit down for this, you aren't going to believe it, but it was legal, because it is currently not illegal to trade based on foreknowledge of what will happen in a terror attack. It's treated as a normal stock market trade. I know, that's just simply horrible. So even if we find out who did this, he won't be put on trial for the stock market trade alone. However, he will be complicit in the attack since he knew in advance. So, how did he do it? Now, there are two ways to make money on the stock exchange, but most people don't know that. They only know one. And that one way is to buy a stock and hope it goes up in value. Now, nearly everyone understands how that works. Buy low, sell high. Many of our viewers have done this themselves. But the second way that most people don't know is to bet that a stock goes down. That's called short selling. You don't actually buy the stock, you buy a bet that it's going to go down. And on October 2nd, just 5 days before the attack, there was a massive spike in these short sells that the Israeli stock exchange would drop. Whoever this was went out and bought these short sells, knowing with certainty that the Israeli exchange was going down a few days later. And these short sell trades were made in large blocks. It wasn't a whole bunch of little trades. It was just a couple very large trades. Only a few investors created all that volume. This wasn't a bet on a short sell that every investor out there saw that something was about ready to happen. It was just one or two people who invested an incredible amount of money. That in itself is very unusual. But is there any real proof that this short sell was that unusual? Two law professors from the USA, Robert Jackson of NYU and Joshua Mitz of Columbia, released their in-depth report on this on December 4th. What they found was this short sell fraud purchase of October 2nd was higher than 99% of all days in the last 20 years. That's not a coincidence. To try to make this connection even stronger is what happened in April of 2023. April, you say? Yes. It's been reported that Hamas planned to attack Israel back in April instead of October on the Passover holiday. But it didn't. The reason they suspect is so that Iran could secure the hostage payout from the USA. Do you remember that payout? The $6 billion payout that finally happened in September? So Hamas planned the attack all the way back in April, but didn't do it so Iran could get the payout from the USA. But someone did make an incredible short sell back in April, just like they did in October. On April 3rd, 2023, 2 days before the Passover, just in case the attacks happened then, the short sell bet in April was of the same magnitude as the short sell in October. It was also made in big blocks. Just 1 or 2 people did it. What is the chance of that? 1 in a million? 1 in a billion? These short sells were not an accident and were made with intentionality and foreknowledge that the Israeli stocks would drop in the days following an attack, and those making the bet would cash in. And in October, of course, they did. Many common Israeli stocks dropped about 30% in the days following the attack. They bounced back later, but the profit was already made by the scoundrels who pulled this thing off. However, not all Israeli stocks were short sold. For instance, Israeli funds linked to defense and military were not. Naturally, because these were the funds that went up dramatically after October 7th while others went down. But these military stocks were not part of the short sell. This also shows the methodology and intent in the short sell plan that these guys came up with. For this very interesting information, we need to give a shout out to Stephen Welp, a member of our community who provided this research for us and some of the research that we're yet to show you. That's one thing that makes this channel different. It's that we're a community working together to discover the pieces of how prophecy fits into what we see happening in this world. Now, back to the short sell insider trading. Taken together, our evidence is consistent with informed traders anticipating and profiting from the Hamas attack. And it's not the first time this has ever happened. Do you know that? For example, Chesney, Carmeri, and Marcini in 2015 documented what they called abnormal trades in the options markets prior to 9/11/2001 in the USA. So bad guys already knew how to profit from terror all the way back then. Now, we mentioned this was legal given current laws. But the people who did it knew in advance that an attack was going to happen. I, for one, would really like to know who these bad actors were. I bet you would too. So let's see if we can figure this out. Who did it? It has to be someone with prior knowledge of the attack. So you're probably thinking, it's Hamas, right? They certainly had prior knowledge. They're the ones who carried it out. And they also had prior knowledge of that April planned attack. Plus, Hamas's leadership, its 3 highest ranking officers, are all billionaires already. Many suspect this is from funneling humanitarian donations into their own accounts. They had knowledge, they had motive. Another possible group is the Iranian leadership. They also had knowledge, likely from their relationship with Hamas, and certainly their leadership needs more dollars to fund operations just like October 7th. These are the likely 2 suspects. But if I've learned anything in the past decade, the most likely suspects aren't necessarily the ones pulling off the heist. Events are not always just what we see presented in the news. A lot of times, it's used like a false flag. The other possibilities are that someone in the West had insider knowledge that October 7th was going to happen. Maybe they even helped fund or plan this event. Well, what makes me think that? Well, although most news sources support the findings of the experts, news sources like Washington Post, Reuters, Fox, 2 news sources, CNBC and CNN, disagreed and said that the 1 in a million short sell that we just described in this video was just random chance, but no one actually made money on the October 7 events. Really? 1 in a million is random chance? Not when I took statistics back in college. So we have to ask, why would these news channels say something like that? Who are they protecting? Well, they may be protecting Hamas or Iran, That's certainly possible. But it's also more likely they're protecting someone else, a sinister force behind the scenes, either maybe the deep state or the globalists, both of whom might have had incentives to want to see October 7th happen. The deep state and the globalists are both aimed at one thing: September 24, when the Summit for the Future takes place and the nations, they hope, will surrender their sovereignty to the UN, creating a covenant with the many. On this channel, we stress over and over that the main thing is always the main thing. And when we see something happen, always imagine, could it be related to that main thing that they're trying to see take place? Now, in order to have that covenant with the many happen, these global forces want to come riding in on a white horse, providing global peace. Literally a white horse, the white horse of Revelation 6. But prior to October 7, Israel and Saudi Arabia were just about ready to sign an Abraham Accord peace treaty, which would have likely also aligned the Saudis with Israel and maybe would have created a two-state solution along the lines of what Trump had suggested. This wouldn't have given the global elites the chance to solve world peace on their own, or at least Middle East peace. Rather, it would be the Saudis and Israel doing it. So in the eyes of the global elites, the Saudi-Israeli plan had to be stopped, so the globalists could look like the heroes in so doing and get the covenant with the many signed that gives them absolute power. So globalists had every interest in seeing October 7 happen. This is a typical globalist false flag type of situation. We're not saying it was, but we're saying it's typical of what that might be. Cause a problem so that you can be the one that comes in and fixes the problem like a hero. And maybe those on the inside knew this was coming and decided to profit from it. What's a few billion between friends, right? So to me, CNN and CNBC's very strange position on this short sell is more likely protecting someone in a position of real power rather than some minor player in the Middle East. At least that's my feeling. So at this point, I bet you're wondering, what about an investigation of who bought and profited from that short sell gamble? You already said, Nelson, that it was only a couple people. We should be able to figure that out, right? We should. Except the Israeli Stock Exchange also came out saying no unusual trading happened, and they saw no reason to investigate who the traders were. Really? The Israeli exchange said they, quote, didn't understand the theory, end of quote, that the two Americans put forward. Again, to me, that seems very strange. It seems like someone in authority might be protected by all this. They didn't understand what the investigators said. I mean, you and me are just normal people and we understand it. How come the Israeli exchange, which are financial professionals, don't understand it? That really is stretching things to me. So once again, this makes me think of where all this is headed. The Epistle of James reads like this: "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you, and will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasures in the last days. You have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you. Be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it until he receives the early and the late rains." James 5:1-7. So although whoever did this is being protected now, their gold will act as a testimony against them at the return of Jesus. They will get what they deserve. But let's circle back for a second to the idea of the globalists and the UN being interested in being the heroes, providing the world with Middle East peace. there is one more important puzzle piece that must be added to that equation, and that is who will run and control Gaza after the current conflict is over. Click right here to discover that who the world thinks is best is not what the Bible says will happen. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.